My name is Masud. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I wanted to share my opinion on why I believe there's not going to be a property market crash in 2021. So, as you may have seen all over YouTube, all over social media, everyone is making these kind of property crash videos and economic crash and recessions and disaster. And it really kind of pays to what people are feeling right now. They're feeling a lot of emotion and negative emotions because they're being fed all of these messages from everyone telling them to be negative. So people are generally interested in what's going on, but I personally believe that number one, it pays to have a contrarian view. It pays to be different, to think differently. If everyone is saying that something is going to happen, it usually doesn't happen like that. A lot of these people that are saying it's going to be a crash, and everyone else who is having an opinion is saying that it's going to be a crash, usually are not thinking with true facts and figures and logic. They're just thinking with emotion, and it's a little bit of, forgive me if I say this, but uneducated. It's an uneducated view of what's happening. It's easy to say that there's going to be a recession and people are just going to, lose their jobs and we're all just going to go into a huge global meltdown. It's so easy. But it's harder to be positive. It's harder to think differently and to think that property prices are going to sustain themselves and we might actually even have some growth. So to follow off that, I want to give you a few reasons why I think that there might be some actual growth, or we're not going to be as bad as everyone thinks. So number one, the unemployment levels, of course, they are hugely important to the overall economy and to the overall property prices, simply because if people don't have jobs, how will they pay their mortgages, and how will that affect the overall supply and demand in the market? I think that the government will do their best to support people who are currently not working through the furlough system. They said that they were gonna, the Chancellor said that he was gonna cut off the furlough system at the end of November this month, but they've just extended it to March. Similar to all of the other countries like France, Italy, Australia, Spain, they've all extended their, support scheme by borrowing more money. And what's to say that the government is not going to do that again in March? I truly believe that they're not going to let so many people be unemployed, because if everybody does that, it will be like a global depression. It's not just the UK going through this, it's the whole world. Every single government in the world is trying to find a way to manage and sustain what they have, and they're not going to let people suffer like that. It's just, they're not. If we look at the previous recessions, or previous recession in 2008, the banks failed and the government had to bail them out. And that affected people because they didn't have access to lending. They had a restricted access to credit and borrowing money. They couldn't do it because the banks didn't have money. This time, the banks do have money. It's more of a health crisis, a pandemic, and the government is there to support people. It's a different type of recession, and I think that's what people are missing. I think. And I guess the next reason why I think property prices might actually sustain themselves is, well, recently the government have said that they're proposing to possibly increase capital gains tax on secondary and third homeowners. So basically investors, or generally the middle class. And what does that actually mean, and how does it impact the overall supply and demand? Well, if I was an investor and I had just refurbished this property with a view to sell on, and I had found out that the government had made this rule a week ago where I'd be taxed a higher rate for the gain in the profit that I was going to make, I'm probably not going to sell, because it's basic logic. If I'm going to do all of this work and I want to make a profit at the end, but the government are saying we're going to take even more of your profit or more of your hard work, well then I'm just going to keep it then. I'm just going to put it on rent. I'm not going to sell it. Why would I sell it? So if that was to happen, that basically would mean that the overall supply of houses on the market is going to be a lot less, because people are holding on to what they have, and there's going to be a lot more demand for houses. Therefore, it's going to affect prices positively, because people are going to, prices are going to go up because there's not as many houses on the market. It's basic supply and demand, basic economy. The other reason why I think that the UK market in general is going to be okay is because it's made up of smaller micro markets. If you take the Liverpool property market, for example, it's very, very strong in comparison to, let's say, like London. And there's a lot of demand for houses in Liverpool simply because there's a lot of potential for growth. The yields are good. There's a lot of reasons to be happy for that, because the houses are cheap as well, But London, for instance, the houses aren't cheap, the yields aren't good, and generally people are not in a position to buy. So the market isn't doing as well, and I'll show you a few statistics to prove that. But to put a little bit of context to that point, let's say in Derby, Rolls-Royce had a factory where they laid off 6,000 people, and generally the local economy in Derby was affected. In comparison to, let's say, Amazon had just made their own warehouse in Southampton, well, they've just hired 6,000 people. So generally that local economy, that local property market is going to be positively affected. So this this is what I mean. There's different locations in the UK which are going to be affected differently overall as a result of what's going on. And that's always how it's been. So if we do see any sort of media publications about there's a property crash because prices are going down, if you look at the specifics, it's usually one specific area, and usually it's more liquid areas like London. So generally, I do believe that we're going to be okay, but you're free to believe whatever you want.